Right, good morning. Thank you for joining us for today's Technocamp session, where today we're going to be going through Adobe Premiere Rush, and we're going to be talking about the different things we can do with it and how we can apply that and use it when teaching our students. So, as a first basis, just to make sure we're all on the same equal footing, we should probably discuss about video editing and what it is. So, video editing is the manipulation and arrangement of video shots. We can manipulate these video shots by changing the clips themselves, but also by editing the video itself, such as things like colour correction and different transitions and effects, or we can edit the sound, such as adding new or editing existing audio. We can also arrange our clips by either changing the order of the videos themselves, or changing the frames, such as clipping videos and cutting them, duplicating them, things like that. So, that leaves us on to what is Premiere Rush. We may have heard of Adobe Premiere before, but that's not what we're going to be using today. So, Adobe Premiere, also known as Adobe Premiere Pro, is an industrial standard editing software. That's been used for Hollywood movies such as Gone Girl and Deadpool. It's been used for quite a good few decades now. It's become the industry standard. It's the go-to probably alongside Final Cut Pro. Now, Premiere Rush is very much a cut-down version of that. We don't need to be learning an industrial level software, especially not teaching that to students. So we use Premiere Rush instead, since we get all of the main things we want done, but it's less industrial, there's less guff. So, let's start off by saying how are we going to create our Premiere Rush project. So, if we go ahead, if I minimize this, and if we go ahead and open Premiere Rush, so we'll see a load up screen like standard, and now we'll see a screen like this. What we want to do first is we want to select create new project. So that's this button here. This will now ask us to select our starting folder and our starting file. We can also have a project name. So if I just call this Technocamps, and then we want to select a file with some sort of media in. So I would have prepared a folder. I would recommend everyone, before they go ahead to make a Premiere project, they should probably have a folder prepped with at least some level of clip in it. Excuse me. When I say a level of clip, I mean like some sort of starting video file. So I'm going to start here with some of our lecture footage from our degree apprenticeship program. And then we can just press create in the bottom right. This will now prep that media for us and it will add it to our timeline. So if I full screen this, we can start to get a better look at this interface. So, the Premiere Rush interface. There's a lot of buttons, but they're all very simplistic. We're going to start from the top left. So, up here we have our Add Media button. This allows us to add things like media, add predetermined graphics, audio, or a voiceover, as well as media from our computers. And then we also have the option here for our project assets folder. This lets us see everything we've got. So, by default, sequence 1 will always be what's on the top timeline. So if we were to add more to this, sequence 1 would change and it would grow. Whereas on the left here, we see we've got something called CSF 202, something demo. That's the actual clip itself. So the project assets are all the assets we've added. Then if we move down to our bottom left, we've got a clipping tool here. This allows us to split our clips, so we can turn one clip into two clips into four, etc, etc. It cuts where the scrubber is. The scrubber is this blue part here. This lets us know what frame we're on. So if I was to go, okay, let's cut it here and press that, we've now got two clips. We're going to undo that. Then we've got this button here. This duplicates our clips, so this is essentially just a copy and paste. So if we press that, we've now got two of them. We'll delete that, so we've only got the one. We've then just got our delete button, that just deletes the clips. We've got an expanding audio button. This expands the audio for us. So now we can see larger the audio which is being played. So it's just a voiceover by our lecturer here. but we can see by the audio waves when he's talking, when he's not, things like that. It allows us to, if we wanted to cut out breaks in audio, this is a lot easier to see than this. That hides it, that opens it, same button. We've then got a button here which allows us to control our tracks. So this lets us see this. This allows us to do things such as locking or unlocking a track so it can't be manipulated, hiding or unhiding a track, and then muting or unmuting audio on that track. This one here is our video track, our first one. These ones here are audio tracks. We've started by 3 by default. We can hide that for now. And then here we've just got sort and filters. These work for our project assets. And finally we've got an add button down here. If we were to click on a thing, we could press add, it would be added to our timeline. So, moving over to the right, if I just hide that, just we've got a little bit more space. In the top right, we've got our undo and redo buttons. And now we have a graphics button. This allows us to add graphics to our timeline. We'll get onto that a little bit further. We've got effects. This allows us to add transitions, pans and zooms, things like that. We'll get onto that later as well. Color correction, so we can color correct our clips either by presets or by manually editing them. We'll do that a little bit more detail in the future as well. Our speed, so we can change the speed at which our clips are played at. So we can make things quicker or slower. Our audio, we can do a little bit of basic audio editing in this software as well. So that's things like we can change the bass, we can change the treble, we can also change our volumes. And then finally, we can also crop, rotate and transform our clips. So we can transform what's in the lens, what's in frame. So, now we've gone over that, we're going to go through each one of those in a little bit more detail and slowly build up a sort of a video. So, let's start off by adding some new media. So, as I said, we can add media by pressing this plus button over here. This will allow us to turn our asset library, which we currently see here, and we can do that, and now it turns into a browser. So this is very much a browser as you would see in any other software such as Windows Explorer. So I can go back, and now we've gone to the desktop, but I'm interested in what's in my Premiere folder. This was a predetermined folder I'd made earlier. So from here, we're going to add a new video. We're going to add this one. If I press add, it's going to import the file for me. If I now just go back to my project assets, we can see that we've now got CSF 202, the demo, and a 4-minute video of something called Prop 1, which is one of our previous lecturers doing a bit of discrete mathematics. So, notice how now sequence 1 is now 4 minutes 22 plus 1 minute 38, so it's 6 minutes in total. And we can scrub through these, and when it wants to catch up, okay, but there will be a little bit of lag sometimes. There we go. We can now see it goes from one clip to the other. Be aware this is something which you may see in schools when students are using the software, depending on your machines. It can be a little bit unresponsive, especially when it goes from one clip to the other, or you're jumping massively in time. So if you've got a 10-minute clip and you go from the first minute to the final minute, it may have a little bit of lag. That is normal. So, like I said, we can add media. So we've just done that, and it's automatically been added to our first timeline here, and it's also automatically been added to our project assets. So that's it, that's how we add media. We can do that as many times as we want with different assets. We can do it with sound, and it will be added to our first audio line, which would be this one here. We can do that with graphics, and they would also be put on our video timeline. So we can do that with many things. Now, how do we add Premiere graphics? When I say Premiere graphics, I'm referring to a very particular type of graphic. If we go to our plus button again, we can see there's an option for graphics. Now these don't explore what's in our Premiere folder or on our computer. These are things which have been created by Adobe Premiere. And they're predetermined, and they allow us to have a variety of things. So we can have things such as titles, So if we pick one of these, we could just go for, okay, I want this one. Press add. It's adding a motion graphic. And now this has been added to a new track. This track up here is our overlay track. Generally, things which go on top of each other, similar to Photoshop, will be on top of each other generally. So if I now scrub back to here, we can notice, when it wants to play, that this is on top of our video. And this just says transition with title. We can add other things which aren't titles as well. We can add transition graphics. So let's say we want one of those going in between our video with our lecturer talking about CSF 202 to our lecturer talking about discrete mathematics. So let's just add this one in. As well as pressing the add button, we can also just drag and drop. And then finally, let's say, I don't know, we also really want a overlay of this. So that we can see. Actually, I'll tell you what we will do. Pause that. Oh, we will mute that for a moment. There we go. So now we've got our overlay here, which is just a simple loading bar because it's an overlay. So it hasn't really done anything, it's just there just for us to see. And then also, if we scrub forward a little bit, let's say play from here. So play from here, there we go. We should now be able to see in a moment our transition graphic. So that wasn't as clean as we would like. We could just move that around a little bit. Notice how it's snapping here, because it's noticing there's two clips and we might want it there. So if we do that now, we almost get a nicer transition. Maybe if we do it the other way, we might get a nicer transition. There we go, that's almost there. We could probably zoom in and make it a little bit more, a little bit nicer. We can zoom in by pinch to zoom, or using a mouse wheel and control. So we could probably just move that across a little bit like that. Play from here, and we'll see if it works. Yeah, I'd say that works. We can zoom it a bit more just to double check. There we go. Maybe a little bit further, because really you want your graphic, if you're doing a transition, to be in between the two. Let's try that again. There we go, and that's pretty perfect as far as going from one scene to the other if we wanted to use that graphic. But notice we can just add as many different ones as we want. They all have different uses. Now we've added graphics, we can also add audio. So, as I mentioned, we can add audio if we've already got some on the computer by going to Your Media. But also, similar to graphics, Premiere has audio suggesting for us. So, we have three main types here. We have soundtracks, so these are just normal songs, essentially. You may use one of these if your video is very close to that length. Like ours isn't, but let's say we want to add this one to it. And we just press add, and then we've got it here. And if we press play, we should get some sort of audio. So we are getting audio there. But we can also add other things. So we can add sound effects, such as this one, which should be a fanfare. If we press play again. So we're getting a bit of a fanfare. But these generally work quite nicely with our transitions. And then finally, my favourite thing which Premiere offers are loops. So if you're doing something, maybe it's like an infomercial or something like that, something which doesn't need massive music, because you've already got a voiceover, but you want something in the background, we can add a loop. If we add a loop in, by pressing add, notice these loops are very short, but the main point of these is they can be duplicated nice and easy. So if we just press our duplicate button, we can just duplicate it, drag it up here, we can duplicate it again, drag it up here, etc, etc, and we can just keep doing this for as long as necessary. For as long as until we've filled up our whole clip. Like if I was to do one more, that would more or less fill up our first clip, and then we've got a continual loop of music. So like I said, we just add it to our tracks. Additionally, we can also add voiceovers. Our voiceover is easily done by just viewing our audio tracks. So remember that's this button here, what allows us to view them. And then we can go on to one of these buttons here, and we can target the track for recording. So if I want to target this one, that will now turn that into a red circle. The red circle tells us it's ready to record, and we can just tap that button and it will start recording for us. So it gives us a bit of a countdown, and then what it will do is it will play through our video for us, and we can add a voiceover to it. So then we've got a bit of a voiceover here, and you can do that for your whole video if you want to, if you need to add a voiceover to something. The good bit is it actually plays it for you, and it doesn't interfere with any of the pickup. So it's only be picking up your voice, it won't be picking up anything off the actual computer itself, which is quite nice. So, once we've actually added our music, so let's take our one here, we can actually go and manipulate it. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier. We'll go into a little bit more detail now. So, like I said, straight away we can modify the clip volume. So we can increase it, we can decrease it. You can set that by a normal number, or you can use the slider. We've also got an option to mute. And then we've got our advanced options, so these are quite fun. So we can select what type of audio it is, and it will give us appropriate options for it. So if it's music, we can do an auto volume, so it will level it all out for us straight away. It won't make it too loud. We can do an auto duck, which will turn down our background music for us. We can then change the type, so we can do voices, so we can auto volume, we can balance the sound, we can reduce background noise, reduce echo, we can enhance the speech, so we can make it a bit higher pitch, a bit lower pitch. And then also we have an option for other, which is just auto volume. We can also have options here for channels, where we can have left and right channels, we can turn them on and off. So if we want to make something mono, we can do that. If, say, we've recorded something, but it's only picked up in the one side and the other side's got a load of garbage in, we can just turn that side off. Quite a few nice options here. This isn't an audio editing software, so don't go expecting it. You know, we can't go adjusting things like treble and whatnot. But we can do little bits. We can do enough to get away with it, I think. So, adding effects and transitions. We can access our transitions through the effects menu on our right hand side. So, on our right hand side here, we've seen this before. We can go to effects, and we can see our transitions, our pans, our zooms, things like that. So, let's start this off with a transition. So, transitions work the same way they do in PowerPoint, the same way they do in Movie Maker, things like that. We can add a transition between clips. So let's go for this one, for example. Now that's been added. So we can to remove that transition just so we can see this one. So we press play now. So what should happen now is when it gets to the end of a clip, we should see a slight transition. And there you go. These transitions can be added and removed. So let's say we don't want one at the beginning, we can get rid of it. When you go to add a transition, you have to press on your clip first to tell you which clip you wanted to add it to. It will add it to both ends. It will add it to the left, it will add it to the right. From there, we can be specific and we can tell it what we want to actually, where we want the transition to be, just by deleting one or deleting the other. In this case, I deleted one on the left because I only want the transition going from the one clip to the other. We can also do a pan and zoom. So, pan and zoom is not for video, it's for images. So if we go to your media, and let's add a graphic, say, let's just add something, one of my screenshots I took. Let's take this one. This will do. So, it's added the clip to the timeline because I clicked on this clip, so it adds a dish straight away after that, so it's added here. But what we can do with pan and zoom is it allows us to pick a start point and an end point of our image. So let's say that in our video we want to start here and end here. What Premiere will now do is it will start us in this blue box and then animate for us until the end frame is this point. So our result will be this. That's not very useful, so let's go back to it and maybe we can do something a little bit more interesting. If we go to pan and zoom, there we go. You have to make sure you're on the right clip. Let's say we start here, but actually we want to end seeing the whole top. That might be a little bit more useful maybe. So then we can just do this. Do it zooms out, things like that. We also have an option for auto reframe. So if you've got something in the incorrect ratio, you can auto reframe it, and Premiere will take care of Premiere Rush, will take care of all of that for you as well. So we'll talk about panning and zooming. Like I said, we have our two boxes, and we go from one to the other. We can also, as I mentioned earlier, modify our clip speed. So we go to speed here, and this allows us to modify how fast or how slow our clip is going. So by default, our range is the entire clip. We can see that by the purple line here. Let me zoom out a little bit so we can see the whole clip. There we go. Lovely, that will do. And our range speed is set to 100%. It was, 1 second. It was set to 100%. So that is, by standard, our whole clip playing at 100% of the speed, so normal. But what we can do is say, oh, I want that clip to be a little bit quicker, play it at 120 speed instead. So now our lecture will be a little bit quicker. We can go that the other way and go, oh, actually I want to slow them down a bit. Now it's a little bit slower. We can also say, oh, the bit at the beginning is a bit slow. So actually, we're just going to do this bit, this section. The section is dictated by that purple line here. So what you would probably want to do is go, oh, okay, I want to go up to this bit here, for example. You see now we've got a little white marker here. That white marker is where our scrubber is. So when we go, okay, we can now just go up to there. There we go. And in that section, we can modify the speed just of that bit if we want to. So it allows us to do it both ways. We can either do whole clips or sections. Another cool bit we can do is, let's say we've got our video clip which is 1 minute 37, but we've only got 1 minute 30 worth of audio. In that case, we can actually go, cut you down for 1 minute 30, and it does the maths for us. So it knows that to go from 1 minute 38 to 1 minute 30, let's go 1 minute 30 exact. We need to go to 1.9 speed. 1.9, 109% speed. Do excuse me. And it will do that. We can also have a ramping, so it will ramp the speed. And then we can also have it to maintain the audio pitch or not. We can also transform our clips. So if we go to cut and rotate, so we've got a lot of options here, but they're not too bad, I promise. So on here we can select a clip on our timeline and we can modify its position on the view window, as well as its rotation, opacity and scale. So if let's say we're going to do this clip again, and we can change its position, so we can say, oh, actually let's cut our lecturer out. There we go, he's gone. We can also do up and down as well, so let's cut him out again, gone. Or we can cut the Windows toolbar out because it's got sensitive data on it. Let's go. Things like that. We can also rotate the clip, so we can do it upside down. Once again, all of these can be set by numbers. And then also we can do the opacity. So we can go, oh, okay, we're actually going to make it a little bit more transparent. This works very well if we've got clips underneath it. So if I was to take this clip, put this clip on top, if I wanted to, or we could just add something. So we could add this one here, make it go on top, and then modify this opacity. So now we can see the video behind it. Put that back where it was. We can also do the scale. So we can scale it, so we can make it bigger, make it smaller. Let's say we was doing this and we only wanted to see the console. So we could do that, and that would work. We could also then crop it. Let's say, okay, let's actually get rid of some of the. Let's actually get rid of some of the top, and let's get a little bit rid of the right as well. Lovely, there we go. And just to make it look pretty as well, we can also feather the edges a little bit, just so it helps us with our cropping. And there we go, now we've got a video just of the console. And this would work for anything, so we can crop it, we can do all this stuff. We can also add colour correction. So if we were to undo this, let's undo this. We'll undo all of this cropping. We'll undo our feathering as well. So we're back to having a normal video. And we'll also put it back at its normal opacity so we can see it a little bit easier. We could say, let's add some colour correction. Colour correction within Adobe is, as says here, it allows us to modify colour values either via built-in presets or by doing it ourselves, or by a mixture of the two. So, excuse me, let's say we take this preset, our cinematic preset apparently. We could go, okay, I'm really happy with that. I love how it looks. Or we can go to edit, and then we can start messing with some of this stuff as well. So we can mess around with the exposure, the contrast, the highlights, the shadows, the temperature, the tint, the vibrance, the saturation. We can add we can add, like, do we want our clip to look like it's being faded or not? Do we want to add additional sharpening? Do we want to modify this? Do we want to modify the amount of this or the feathering of it? Let's say we added lots of it, and then we did some feathering to it. You know, we can do quite a lot. We can play around with these quite a lot, or we can just set it back to normal. There's lots of these, and what you can do as well is, if you go to edit, we can actually then make one of these ourselves and go, oh, okay, actually, we're gonna do the exposure, we're gonna do in the contrast, we're gonna add a load of highlighting, we're gonna reduce some shadows, reduce the temperature to make it a bit more blue, add a bit more of a tint to it, let's make it a bit green, why not? Let's make it really vibrant, and you know what, I'm gonna save that as a preset. And then we can save that. That's something else we can do. Now under test presets, it will always be there. And with all of these, we can change the intensity of it, so we can make it really intense or not intense at all. These work a little bit better with the presets, mind you. Less so with the one we made. Notice how if we turn the intensity down to 0, it just becomes normal. So that is more or less everything, really. The graphic option here, I think the only one we haven't really touched on. If we were to add a graphic from here, we can go into the graphic options here and this is how we change it. I think this is the only bit we haven't really touched on so far. And essentially it just allows us to go, oh, okay, we want to change the font, we're going to change our font. We're going to change our font, we're going to change what it actually says. So instead of saying loading content, let's say loading bar. We're going to change the font to something awful, like Arial, let's say. Or what else we got? Burial, what we use at Technicamps. We can also change the font style, so we can change the Burial bold. We can change the colour to black, so we can't see it properly. We can move it around on here as well, so let's put it up here so we can now see it. We can also change the shape and the outline. So because all of these are made within Premiere Pro, it also means that actually we're allowed to manipulate quite a lot of it. So there we go, we've now made it red, things like that. We can also do the same for this one as well. Our transition title. There's no transition without the title. So, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. My contact details is lee.clift@technocamps.com. I will probably add that to this video recording via Premiere Rush myself, so you can have a copy of that. I will also be providing a copy of the slides. I know we haven't really used them for today's tutorial too much, but they are quite self-explanatory. So, I hope that covers everything, and have a good day.